Good morning to our viewers in the United States. Good afternoon to our viewers in Ukraine and elsewhere in Europe. My name is John Herbst, and I run the Eurasia Center at the Atlantic Council. I want to welcome you today to our newest edition of Atlantic Council Front Page, our live ideas platform spotlighting global leaders who are innovating and championing constructive solutions to current global challenges. We have such a global leader today, Andriy Yermak, the head of the Office of the President of Ukraine, fighting valiantly against Kremlin aggression in Ukraine. Mr. Yermak, in fact, I was in Ukraine with a team and a delegation from the Atlantic Council when Mr. Yermak was appointed to the head of the Office of the President, and we met with him that very day back in, I believe it was 2020. In any case, we turn this over to you, Andriy, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Hello, John. Thank you very much. Dear Ambassador Herbst, dear John, dear ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having me here. I'm grateful for the chance to talk with you today. People of Ukraine, I'm grateful of our American friends for all your help which you provide, both military and humanitarian. Thanks for your support. It's really vital for us. Yesterday, after the NATO summit, I was told the job. With NATO, acronym stands for never act, talk only. They say the joke is so old that it should be called vintage. And now allow me to get to Ukrainian, because today, you know, Ukrainian is the languages of freedom. The languages, I'm sure, of the victory.
If that is true, then as of now, we are not really holding up quite well, or to be exact, NATO is not holding up quite well. Because if NATO is going to react to Russia's invasion to its territory like it has reacted to its invasion into Ukraine, it's not going to be quite well. Then NATO is still fortunate because Ukraine is disposing of Russian tanks at the moment. But that is not what Ukraine was meant of. Ukraine has its own designs, its own plans to develop, to flourish, to continue the path of reforms and to enhance the lives of our peoples. But due to the invasion, these plans have been put on hold. And not only that, due to the invasion, these plans are not going to come to fruition for many people who have died. And there is a threat that these plans are not going to be fulfilled for the entire country. This war is not only for territory. This war is waged as a punishment. This war is a Russian aspiration to divert Ukrainians on their path to Europe. For the Putin's regime, the war against Ukraine is a religious war. This is a war aimed at the destruction of Ukraine. As a people living by its own customs, as a political nation, choosing its own values, as a sovereign state, which is choosing its own path. These words are no exaggeration. They have to be taken literally, word by word, because that is exactly what the Russian leadership meant, who for years had been telling about Ukrainians as a historical phantom. Henry Kissinger, a man whom I revere very much, was able to very clearly grasp how Russians, what the Russians' attitude towards Ukrainians is.
Any established border for Russia, Ukraine, it's part of the Russian patrimony. Зараз світом просувають компанію.
Now they are diffusing using the campaign throughout the world that is calling for peace There are calls crying for appeasement of Russia, but Ukraine is the country which cherishes the hope for the completion of this conflict, and we are working on the diplomatic front for that. But the appeasement is not the right word, because it implies that there is a parity of potentials. And that is not true, because Russia is a very condescending in its attitude. The predatory plans of the Kremlin are not going to come to fruition. They are failing in this. They have not been able to fulfill any of the strategic plans they intended to attain during this aggression. They hoped that the invasion of Ukraine would be a walkover, a very easy endeavor. As we remember, they have a wealth of experience in terms of foreign invasions. Like in 1956 in Hungary, 1968 in Czechoslovakia, but Ukraine is much stronger than that, and Russia is just an apology of the might the Soviet Union possessed. To curb the revolution in Czechoslovakia, they needed 500,000 people, and to Ukraine they sent 200,000 so far, and a new wave of their forces might be coming. Russia is continuing a covert mobilization of its forces at home, and they are also using blackmail and provocations. And that means that we are going to have to fight on. Still, it is very obvious that Russians have miscalculated in their designs as for Ukraine, because the Ukrainian national anthem says that we are going to give our souls and our flesh for freedom. We know for sure that freedom is the ultimate value, the most cherished thing for us. And in 2014, this conviction was very important for us. It's not about geography. It's obvious in terms of geography. It's more about values for us, because now Ukraine is a sacred grail of Europe, because now Ukraine is revitalizing the principle that gave birth to the current civilization of the West. You cannot trade freedom for comfort. You cannot concede human values in the 21st century. You cannot justify predatory policies in the 21st century. You cannot be afraid of fear. You cannot be afraid of these predatory policies and violence in the 21st century. And Ukraine is not afraid. And that is exactly what makes Ukraine Russia's antagonist, anti-Russia, which a Russian is unfailingly mentioning every time. We are an existential friend for him indeed, because his defeat and our success will lead to the crumble of the Russian regime. Therefore, now we, together with many other countries, are saying that Russia has to be said a terrorist state. The Russian forces are devastating our cities, not because of technological backwardness and our military might. They are doing it in order to intimidate us. They have rained down phosphorus bombs on our cities, and that's not about military preponderance. Choking Mariupol is not about military preponderance, because in Mariupol had more people, more residents than the city of Miami. And just imagine, just come to think of it, that the city the size of Miami is left without food, without water. Just imagine that the city the size of Miami is razed to the ground. Imagine that the city the size of Miami is protected by civilians, not by troops. who keep fighting for every apartment, for every district, without any military stance. And they are doing that. Russians are doing it just to intimidate Ukrainians and not just to capture the city. They're blockading Mariupol, which is very similar to what we have seen during World War II, the blockade of Leningrad, which Russian President Vladimir Putin has mentioned repeatedly, and practically the same is taking place in Mariupol today. They are devastating civilian objects, civilian infrastructure. They are using unconventional weapons to cause humanitarian disaster. They resort to chemical and nuclear blackmail, and we are increasingly hearing this from them. We're seeing an ecological catastrophe in the Chernobyl nuclear power plant area, and that risk remains very credible and real. They are using civilians as a living shield, thousands of them, tens of thousands of them. They're moving Ukrainian nationals to remote cities in Russia. They're calling it an evacuation, but actually, that is just they are just capturing hostages. And Russia has indeed turned into a terrorist state on an official level. The time is ripe to recognize that the Russian troops are a terrorist organization. It's time to recognize them, to acknowledge them as a terrorist organization, because what they are doing now is very much resembles what the fascists, the Nazis, did in the Ukrainian territory during World War II. But obviously, it is not going to happen until Russia still occupies a permanent seat in the UN Security Council. Even despite the fact that Russia has invaded another founding member of the United Nations. And NATO, the biggest military alliance, is just trying to ensure that it is not provoking Russia to a military conflict. And Russia's invasion in Ukraine has put a final full point in this process of appeasement. The unchecked tyrannies are just multiplying impunity, and they acknowledge only the force of power. And Russia has expressly demonstrated that it understands only the language of power, as can be aptly seen from the claims that it lays towards Ukraine. Russia is lecturing other peoples on how they have to live. Ukraine has been able to endure this terrible invasion for a month. We are not going to cede neither our sovereignty nor our territories, but we cannot allow ourselves to have a Pyrrhic victory here. You cannot allow to have Ukraine bleeded dry, because Ukraine has to live on. Ukraine has to remain a frontier, the main frontier of withstanding Russian aggression, in order to have this, we need very concrete things, but we still have to repeatedly remind you about it. Let me remind you of the simplest things. We need to have time. The more time, the better. Just give us this time. We need exchange of intelligence in real time. We badly need a clear and complete picture of what is going on. Our victory will be made closer, will be precipitated by the bravery of every Ukrainian citizen, the bravery of our troops. The second thing comes under various names: javelins, stingers, Mark 19, and so on, as well as small arms, rifles, which, though very modern, have very limited efficiency. We need heavy weaponry, long-range artillery, multiple rocket launchers, etc., and land-lease. Without it, our war will not be able to withstand. And without all these things, the risks of a humanitarian disaster will be further compounded, and we need to avoid this. After all, we need to establish a no-fly zone over Ukraine, and here are several options that we see, and all of them rest with the political will of the sides. The basic variant is giving Ukraine aircraft and long-range missile defense systems developed during Soviet times and Russian times. The stockpiles of these weaponry are available in Central Europe, like Poland and Slovakia and other countries. These stockpiles could be provided to Ukraine together with the United States and other NATO partners. A temporary deployment of Patriot systems could defend other European countries from a potential Russian incursion. So many countries in NATO advocate the increase in military support for Ukraine, and that can be seen during demonstrations in various corners throughout the globe, and these demonstrations are taking place daily. Many people advocate the increase of support to Ukraine, including military support, and the number of these people is growing daily. So the leaders of the free world have to heed to the opinion of their peoples. Because if we fear Russia, that is going to nourish their malicious designs, and that will further embolden them. So now we have to be very resolute and very determined. Do not fall in for Russian attempts to provoke you. Ukraine is going to resist. Ukraine will continue to fight, and not only against the aggressor. Ukraine will continue to fight for the future and reliable security guarantees in the aftermath of the war. We are not content with any security system that will result in further security risks for Ukraine. We are not going to accept Russian ultimatums and peace on Russian terms. Russia has to be prevented from further attacking Ukraine in the future. Therefore, we urge our partners and allies to search for a format that would be long-standing and effective. We have learned very well the lessons of the Budapest Memorandum. We have paid a steep price for it with the lives of our people. This war has absolutely demised the old system of security in the world, and those who are not able to grasp it are simply blind. We need to start forthright to build a new security architecture where Ukraine will be a founder and a full-fledged member, and we continue to pay a steep price for the right to do so. And now the time has come for the aggressor to pay as well. So we urge you to step up sanctions pressure. Sanctions have to be adhered to, and we need to eliminate any loopholes for international companies to circumvent sanctions. Give the model to the world that will ensure that Russia is not able to pursue aggressive policies, not only when the active phase of hostilities is over, but beyond that. We urge you to impose an embargo on Russian energy. We urge you to cut the possibilities for gray and black imports from Russia to European Union. Russia is not a trading nation. Russia is a belligerent and military nation. And it intends to be a threat to the entire world. These words are not mine. These words were said by Alexander III, the Russian emperor. He was the one who said it a long time ago. But I think that any other Russian ruler could have said the same about Russia, either in the past or in the present. It remains the same. So everything will be Ukraine. Glory to Ukraine. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay. Andriy, thank you for that eloquent appeal. And you made clear that Ukraine is fighting and fighting effectively and needs great support, more support from the United States and the West in terms of military assistance. And you laid out the specific items. That's good for people to hear, as well as more support in putting sanctions on Moscow and stopping Moscow's energy sales in the West. So with that, let me ask you about the NATO summit, right? It was just took place. President Zelensky had an opportunity to address the summit virtually. And he did so eloquently. He also appealed, as you have, for more support. What is your view of the NATO summit? And how does Ukraine see its interest met in that summit?
John, I guess already answered to these questions. We are very disappointed, if I'm honest. We would expect more bravery, expected some bold decisions. The alliance is taking decisions as if there are no war. No, we have too long until Madrid summit. We will wear in any difference. It's hard to be optimistic here. On the other hand, we appreciate that NATO consider the menace of the Russian using chemical weapons feasible. It means that alliance is starting to understand the level of the Kremlin aggressiveness. We also appreciate calling on the China to take the actions to stop the war in Ukraine. We are sure that both West and the East should be addressed this issue. They should be cooperating. But in general, my attitude that, everything in our life, it's necessary to happen in time. I think it's in time, it's now. We hope that our partners from NATO understand it, how it's understand now Ukrainian people who is fighting and defend Ukraine already 1 month.
All right. Let me drill down on this a little bit more. I understand your disappointment. I think it would have been good if NATO had not just offered a ringing endorsement of your cause, but also taken concrete steps to ensure a greater supply of weapons and solve the problem of getting those MiGs and Sukhoi bombers to Ukraine. Do you have any expectations that this will be resolved in the right way, meaning that those Soviet-era warplanes will be shipped to Ukraine?
Oh, John, we're talking about it practically every day. I'm very honest with the partners, and the President Zelensky had every day up to 10th of the international phone call with the world leaders. I'm talking with my colleagues, its advisor, political advisor of the national security. We are very honest, we are very open and said, look, now it's not time to explain why. It's time to make a concrete steps. And yes, we hope, we believe that our partners will be concrete, not just in the statements, not just in the conversation. Now we need real actions, especially it's concerning the jets. We are waiting so much, our army waiting so much, especially because we have not closed our sky.
Okay. Poland, before the summit, raised the idea of a NATO-protected safe zone in Ukraine. In President Zelensky's address to NATO, did they talk at all about this?
Yes, we know about these initiatives of our Polish friends. But as I know, yesterday it's not supported by the members of Alliance. I think it's now difficult to talk about it without the support and of Alliance. But I hope that our partners not stopping and not waiting for the Madrid summit for the new initiatives for the help to Ukraine and to make all the best to stop this war.
All right. You mentioned in your speech that Ukraine needs real-time intelligence. And I understand, I agree, and we've been advocating for that here in Washington. Has the US or NATO offered to provide, for example, targeting data from AWACS or JSTARS or other vehicles, other assets that we have? Targeting data regarding where Russian assets are, Russian tanks and other equipment is.
You know, John, everything which depends and connected the working of the intelligence source, all this very sensitive. I can answer that we appreciate of the level of the now cooperation between intelligence services of Ukraine and our partners. I know it personally because know personally of the chief of the intelligence agency and United States and Great Britain, Israel, Turkey, and another countries. I hope that this cooperation gives very quick and very necessary important results. All another leave to the professionals. But of course, we need this support, and I openly said that we need the exchange of this information in a reality time because, you know, it's happened. We are living now in the seeing of the alarm which listen the Ukrainian population, not just in Kyiv, Kharkiv, Lviv, Ivano-Frankivsk, everywhere. Now it's the sound of our current life.
Okay. You went through in your speech a long list of weapons that you need. So I don't need to ask you about that. But I would like to ask this. The U.S. administration was very slow before the war in sending weapons to Ukraine. And even slow it should be before the new invasion. And even slow right after the new invasion. Would you say the supply of weapons that you need is getting faster and better in the last week or two?
Let's talk the following. We are very appreciate, and we really always said that United States support us. Maybe they occupied the first place as our partners for support and aid. But honestly, we need more and need quick.
All right. I understand that very diplomatic response. Okay. All right. You also talked about the need for additional sanctions.
No, because, you know, I'm sometimes listen the speech of Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia, for whom the delivery of this aid, one of the most wishes goal. I think it's the question of security.
Sure. Okay. You talked about the need for additional sanctions on Russia. What specifically would you like the West, the world to do now?
John, you know, first of all, I think that after the first wave of the sanctions, we started working very deeply and intensively with all the sanctions. We have now the group of our experts who is analyzing each sanctions, how it's worked, what effect of these sanctions, how to possible to not give to Russians to play some games and to make the situation then it's some sanctions not work. I'm very happy that we decided this, our friends, the friends of Ukraine, Mr. Makfol, to create the groups, Ukrainian and international experts who will be work starting from this Monday in the permanent basis, who will be analyzed all sanctions, described and make a report how it's worked, and proposed the new sanctions in the logic that sanctions have to be effective, have to be worked, and have to be worked in the concrete period of time. Because, you know, one example, of course, the first wave of the sanction includes the sanctions against the political elites of the Russia. But we understand that the top official of Russia will be ready for these sanctions. And it will be not big effects to the decisions of the Russian powers to stop the war through this kind of the sanctions. It means that now I think the policy of the sanctions, of course, it's necessary, definitely, it's necessary to continue. Absolutely. It's necessary to issue the sanctions against the members of the pro-presidential party in Russia, who is more than 2 million plus. It's terrible. It's impossible to list how the journalists in the Russian television 24 hours issue absolutely bullshit, absolutely fakes. It's not just part of the fakes, it was 100% of the fakes. It's impossible to listen. Then Ukraine killed already more than 130 children. They continue to talk that we ourselves bombing Kharkiv, we ourselves blockade Mariupol, we ourselves destroy our cities. It's impossible, and the free world, democracy world, have to react to this. These people can't be just the name of the journalist, because it's absolutely impossible. These people destroy itself the philosophy of this profession. As why it's a very now professional level working. I'm happy that we are starting working with our friends, our partners, and using this opportunity, I will be happy to involve and to ask Atlantic Council to edit this work. We will be happy if you will be ready of some your expert to participate in this consultation and participation in this talking, because your opinion and your position and your advice will be very, very useful for us.
Well, we certainly agree that Russian disinformation is a major problem. There is a part of the Atlantic Council, the research lab, digital research forensics lab, which does extraordinary work in this area. And in fact, I believe they've had people in Ukraine working on this as well as elsewhere around the world. So this is clearly a place where I think the United States and Ukraine and the West more broadly share great interests. All right. You have been involved overseeing negotiations with Russia. What can you tell us about this negotiating process?
I can say first, this negotiation started a very difficult. It was. It started from open ultimatums, which was not acceptable for Ukraine. Now I can say our delegation reports that now it started a really dialogue. Of course, it's continue be very hard. There is some points on which our people in delegations see perspective of some settlement, and still we have, of course, a lot of questions which necessary to continue discuss. But here it's necessary to mention very important things. First of all, the position of Ukraine, the position of president, it's very clear and very concrete. We're ready to discuss all questions because we really have very difficult questions, very conflict questions. But the main goal of this negotiation is stop the war. It's withdraw Russian troops from our territory. It's during this we need ceasefire, we need humanitarian corridors, we need be able to deliver the food, the water of some cities in Ukraine, because it's physically people died without water, without food, especially in Mariupol, and Russians block it. The second, we have some principal questions with which for us, it's impossible to find compromise. It's our independence, it's our territorial integrity and sovereignty. But in the same time, we're ready in different level. Of course, we think that the most important to discuss in the level of presidents, we already discussed all questions, all problems which exist between two countries. You know that now we have not just diplomacy relationship between Ukraine and Russia. I mean, and Donbass, I mean, and Crimea, I mean that for us, very important that after this war, we need to have new structure of the security guarantees for Ukraine. Now, in this negotiation, involving in the level of bilateral consultation, we involve our partners. You know that in the beginning, just before the war, we said that we are looking that the future guarantors of the security of Ukraine have to be the permanent membership of the Security Council, plus Germany, plus Turkey, and now we are involved in this procedure, Israel, Canada, and today I received an information and we are happy to welcome in this list Italy. I think that the list of the potential guarantors for us will be very good if it will be very big list of the countries, not just the country who is the neighbors of Ukraine. It will be great if in this list will be India. In this list will be Japan. If this list will be once again the country who is a neighbors of Ukraine. In general, I can say that I have today very careful optimism concerning these negotiations. And very strange that sometimes we are listening that some third parts make some statement that they definitely know that some of the points we already confirmed, already decided. I think the best information it's necessary to receive from the parts of these negotiations. But we think, we hope the delegation working 24 hours, 7 days in the format of the video. They're not stopping just in weekends. And we hope that this work gives opportunity to organize, arrange as soon as possible meetings between two presidents. And the last, concerning the negotiations. I'm very open to say for our partners, we are very appreciative that some countries participated and work like mediators, like countries who speak with Ukraine and speak with Russia. But my opinion that it's a very necessary that any mediators occupy very strong position. It's not the time that it's possible be just very free mediator. It's necessary in the beginning, clearly understand it's war, it's aggression of Russia, not Ukraine coming to Russian lands. And it's mean very clearly make this definition. Who must be stop war? Who must be withdraw their troops from our territory? And who win and who guilty that today killed civilian people in our country? I hope you understand that the free mediation, which may be possible and work in the peaceful time, not work in the time of war. And if we appreciate the help of all our partners, we appreciate of just initiatives to help Ukraine and to stop the war. But I am absolutely sure the successful of this mission must be possible only if this country exactly understand that this is the war and who has started this war. Thank you.
Thank you. We now have like 15 minutes left. We'll go to audience questions. The first question is from Roman Alyarchik, who's a correspondent for the Financial Times. I'm sure you know him. He says the following: Russia's defense ministry just seems to have said that they never planned on capturing Kyiv and other major Ukrainian cities, but instead meant to weaken Ukraine's army and then to later liberate Russian-controlled breakaway regions of Donbass by extending their territories to administrative borders of Donetsk and Luhansk oblasts. Do you see this as Russia trying to save face after facing such fierce resistance from Ukrainian forces that their full-blown attempted invasion failed and proved too costly? And what will Ukraine do in such a situation? Will it fight on with full force to liberate all Ukrainian territories, Donbass, the Crimean Water Canal, Crimea? A very comprehensive question.
Look, It's the big dangers before war is finished to make publicly any prognosis, especially then you are fighting against one of the biggest army in the world. I'm occupied the following position. Let's talk about positive things against this war, after this war. In the period then you, every minute, every hours, and the bombing of the Russian planes, then you are still need a lot of things to win. I prefer to occupy the same position than occupied our, I think, genius chief of the army. He's doing his job and give the opportunity for everybody in the world to make their opinion and their decisions. I keep the same position.
Okay, thank you. We have a question from Ira Strauss. Would this war be over already? In other words, would Ukraine have already won if we, the West, had provided all the right weapons before it started? How soon could it be over if we started providing all the right weapons now, that whole list that you ran through during your speech?
I don't understand the question. Can you please repeat?
Yes, yeah. I'll repeat it. The question is, if you provided a long list of weapons that you think Ukraine needs, that Ukraine does need, the question is, if we had provided all those things to you, say in December, might Russian forces have already been defeated? Might they be through? Or if we provided them right now, would you be able to win the war, truly defeat the Russians in a matter of time? And how much time do you think that would be?
First of all, if everything about which we are talked last year happened, I think it's war. It's possible never started. The second, if we continue receive and in time receive everything which we need, yes, we have the very good chances to win in this war.
Okay, thank you. We have a couple of questions relating to the deportation of thousands of Ukrainian adults from Mariupol, Donetsk, and Luhansk in recent weeks. One of them is from an anonymous attendee of this forum. The other one is from Natalie Melnishuk. So the question is there any information where these victims are, information on Russian camps, on disappearances vague? Any thoughts on this?
We have some part of this information that a lot of these people in Rostovskaya region, plus they were going for some, as we can call, depression region of some depression region of the Russia. And of course, we have this information that mainly these people going to Russia against their will. As why it was of the provocation in the beginning, then starting from Kharkiv, started from Chernihiv, they try to open the corridors only to the territory of Russia. And then understand that our people refused to go to the Russia. They started to block this city. But sometimes then it's talking about the children. This is a big problem that they absolutely without will. I think I said that we are can say that it's kidnapping of these people, of these children. They kidnap these children, especially of the thousands of children. Then the children was without parents. It's a big problem, and of course we are working, analyze this information, and you know that the principle of the President Zelensky and all our power, we not leave any individuals without our help. We never forget about any individuals. We will be carried out, and for each our citizens, from child up to old person. And of course, I can say in the same time, we not forget about all these crimes which Russian militaries done and continue, unfortunately, doing in our lands. It's really terrible. It's really terrible. It's not accidental that the presidents said, and I repeat in my speech today, that it's a very similar that we can remember what happened in territory of the former Soviet Union during Second War. I'm yesterday, during my interview to some Israeli media, to make a very clear statement, because some Russian propaganda make a fakes that President Zelensky compare the Holocaust of Jewish people with everything which happened today in Ukraine. I said very clear that it's not true. President Zelensky, who's Jewish, and you know, clearly understand and never compare Holocaust and never compare the war in Ukraine. But he said, and I absolutely confirm and support, that the methods with which Russian soldier, Russian army acts in our territory, it's a very similar of the fascists done in territory of the former Soviet Union. It's real terrible, and it's really a military crime. And I'm sure that it will be a lot of cases and court in Hague and many others.
Thank you. We have a question from Mark Lindsay. He says, excellent speech. What do you think the chances are that Lukashenko will make a giant mistake and order Belarusian military forces to invade Ukraine?
You know, if you're talking about mistake, Mr. Lukashenko, it's already done this mistake. From his land, from his territory, from with which we have very close relationship with the people of Belarus. It's a very good people. It's a very kind people. It's and our relation with people of Belarus, it's very warm and very good. And the fact that the power of Belarus give to Russians opportunity to use the lands to start this terrible invasion to Ukraine, it was a mistake. But I think, I hope that the Belarusian power clearly understand that mainly I saw yesterday figures that only 3% of the Belarusian people it's support any involving of the Belarus in this war. I think these figures saw not just me. These figures saw and the power, the top officials of Belarus, and they understand that Belarusian people not support, not agree that this country will be part of this war. But using the land of Belarus, it's continuing. But you can see how smart our power that we not the answer to this provocation, because we believe that Belarusian people not permit the power to be officially involved in this war.
Okay, thank you. We'll do one more question before we close. It's from Brett Wright. He asks, Germany and other European Union nations are refusing to cut off oil and gas supplies from Russia right now. It seems that what is at stake is comfort for Germans and others and the strength of their economy, while what is at stake for Ukraine is a matter of life and death. What is your opinion on this?
I very clear said about it in my statement. I think the people who still think that it's possible to buy the comfort life, to pay on the price of the blood children and blood people in Ukraine, very soon understand that everything which happened in Ukraine. I'm born in Kyiv. I never can imagine that I can see the picture how in the sky of my city will be fire after the bomb and missiles. But now it's reality. And today, nobody in the world, in the Europe especially, can be safe. And I think, I'm sure, to see the 100,000 Germans in the street of Berlin, they clearly understand that it's possible happened in the sky of Berlin, of Düsseldorf, of Hamburg. And I think if the politics not already understand, the people push them, understand it's exact. I'm sure about it. And about the position, you know, the President Zelensky very openly and very clearly said about the position of some countries. And in his speech in different parliaments, plus absolutely openly, he said yesterday in the summit of Nato and in the summit of the EU, exactly listed all the members countries and give their position. Yesterday, all the Europe listened to what position occupied their governments. And the people in the world already made their decisions about Ukraine, about support, about this war, and about that Ukraine is the part of the Europe.
Mr. Yermak, thank you very much for that answer. Thank you very much for your time. And thank you very much for providing an example of leadership that inspires people around the world. And thank you all for tuning in. We'll be doing more events on Ukraine and Russia's unjust war in Ukraine next week.
John, thank you very much. Thank you very much, and thank you for everybody.